Archaeologists call it the world's oldest temple, but some believe it's really a graveyard for giants.
Göbekli Tepe has only been known to the archaeological and scientific community for around the last 50 years.
During the intensive dig, Schmidt and his team begin to unearth dozens of additional giant stone monoliths covered in intricate carvings, some weighing as much as 20 tons.
Excavations at Göbekli Tepe were suddenly stopped. Trees were planted, and officials say digging won't resume for 150 years. Why? Maybe it's not just history they're hiding. Maybe it's proof that the Nephilim, the half-human giants of ancient legend, were real. And they're buried under the very site they just covered up. Göbekli Tepe isn't just old, it's ancient beyond belief. Built over 11,000 years ago, it predates the pyramids by more than 6,000 years. It was constructed at a time when humans were supposedly just hunter-gatherers. No writing, no metal tools, no organized religion. And yet, someone built this massive site with perfectly carved stone pillars, weighing up to 20 tons each. Mainstream archaeologists say it's a temple, maybe the first of its kind. But here's what they don't say. Göbekli Tepe was buried on purpose. Thousands of tons of dirt were used to cover it up sometime around 8000 BC. Who does that? Who builds something that massive, then erases it from history? Even weirder, many of the carvings on the pillars show animals that shouldn't have been in that region. Some researchers think they represent extinct species, ones that lived during the Ice Age. Others believe the carvings are symbolic warnings, recording something catastrophic, maybe even a global event like the Great Flood. Now, here's where the theory gets strange. Some believe the burial wasn't done to hide the site, but to hide what's underneath it. Not tools, not treasure, but remains. Non-human skeletons with unusual proportions, giants. The kind that match stories from ancient texts. Could this be where the Nephilim were buried? And if Göbekli Tepe wasn't the beginning of civilization, maybe it was the last outpost of something far older. Something we were never meant to uncover. But why shut it down now? Why stop the excavation just as technology is getting better? What exactly are they afraid we'll find? In 2023, something strange happened. Excavations at Göbekli Tepe were quietly put on hold. Archaeologists claimed they were finished for now, and instead of expanding the dig, they planted trees over the site. Then they made an announcement. Full excavation wouldn't resume for another 150 years. Let that sink in. One of the most important archaeological sites on Earth. And they basically said, we'll come back in a century and a half. The official explanation? They say future technology will allow for better, less destructive excavation. That's partly true. Digging does destroy contexts, but here's the problem. They've already uncovered less than 5% of the site. There are still dozens of buried stone circles, some potentially bigger than what we've already seen. Why stop now, just when we're finally starting to understand what this place could mean? Some believe it's a cover story, that the real reason is more unsettling. What if they've already found something and don't want to deal with what it implies? What if it's not just ancient tools or pottery, but something that challenges the foundation of human history? Eyewitnesses and insiders claim that ground-penetrating radar has revealed strange shapes deeper underground. Chambers, maybe even tombs. Could these hold Nephilim remains? Bones that are too large? Skulls that don't match human anatomy or DNA that doesn't fit anywhere on the known tree of life? Because if that's what's buried there, it would send shockwaves through science, religion, and education. Everything we've been taught about where we come from, gone. And maybe that's why the site is being protected. Not from looters or damage, but from discovery. So the question becomes, what else have they buried out there in the hills? Let's talk about the Nephilim, because if Göbekli Tepe really is hiding something, this may be it. In the Bible, Genesis 6 verse 4 says, "There were giants in the earth in those days when the sons of God came into the daughters of men." These weren't just tall people. The Nephilim were hybrids, part human, part something else. Some say they were fallen angels. Others believe they were the result of ancient genetic manipulation or even beings from beyond Earth. Now imagine this. A cataclysm wipes out most of the world. A few survivors bury what remains of their society and its secrets. deep underground, not to preserve it, but to hide it. Ancient cultures from all over the world, Mesopotamia, Egypt, South America, all talk about giants, long skulls, massive strength, even wars between gods and hybrids. Some of these legends go back over 10,000 years. That timeline lines up almost exactly with Göbekli Tepe's burial. What if the site wasn't built by primitive hunter-gatherers, but by the descendants of the Nephilim? Or maybe it was built to imprison them, a kind of seal or warning meant to be left untouched. And here's where it gets even weirder. Some ancient texts say the Nephilim didn't just live in one area. They were scattered. That would explain similar megalithic structures popping up all over the globe. Same architecture, same symbols, same unnatural precision. So when archaeologists say the site is being preserved for the future, maybe that's not the full truth. Maybe it's a vault, one that holds the remains of a race wiped off the face of the earth, a race that wasn't supposed to be remembered. But what if this story doesn't end in the past? What if the Nephilim come back? So if Göbekli Tepe is hiding the remains of the Nephilim, who's keeping the lid on it, and why now? It's not just archaeologists making the decisions here. Sites like Göbekli Tepe often have deep involvement from governments, global institutions, and private interests. The Turkish government controls access. International foundations fund research. Even major universities rely on permission and money to continue their work. So if something was found, something too big to explain, all it would take is one quiet order to shut it down. No headlines, no reports, just trees planted, and 150 years of silence. Why cover it up? Simple. Panic, power, and control. If a discovery proved that giants once roamed the earth, or that humans weren't the first intelligent beings here, it would tear apart everything from school textbooks to religious institutions. Faith systems would collapse, history would be rewritten, and most of all, people would start asking what else has been hidden. Some theorists believe this cover-up isn't new. They say it's part of a long pattern of suppressed discoveries, giant bones lost in museum basements, ancient texts removed from circulation, and researchers blacklisted for asking the wrong questions. Even today, whistleblowers have claimed that certain bones and artifacts discovered at megalithic sites were taken, not by museums, but by military contractors and intelligence agencies. If true, this wouldn't just be archaeology, it would be classified. Because if Göbekli Tepe proves the Nephilim were real, what happens when the public wants to see the bones? Or worse, what if some of them aren't bones at all, but bodies, still preserved, still waiting? And the bigger question no one wants to ask is this: what if they were never fully gone to begin with? Maybe it wasn't the Nephilim. Maybe Göbekli Tepe was built by a lost civilization with technology we still don't understand. Not aliens, humans, but from a time before time. A world erased by a cataclysm so massive, history forgot it ever existed. What if the site wasn't just spiritual but scientific? A giant energy conductor, a map of the stars, or even a machine built to predict extinction events. Or maybe it was a warning system, one last message from an ancient people who saw the end coming and wanted us to be ready when it returned. Some believe what's buried isn't biological at all, but metallic. Artifacts, tools, devices, technology that doesn't belong to this timeline. Tech that could rewrite physics, religion, and power as we know it. So they shut it down. Because maybe the real threat isn't what's under the ground. Maybe the real threat is what happens when the world finds out we're not the first civilization to build, to rise, and to vanish. And if that's true, what does that say about how close we are to vanishing next?